Hello and welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. Today I'm in the very north of Scotland, still on the main island though, and I'm at the Glenmorangie Distillery. The Glenmorangie Distillery is in the very far north, and they told me you have about 2 foot of snow in the winter time, and it's really, most of the time it's windy, it's rainy. Today may see some rain, and how you can have such a rough climber near the sea and still produce such a delicate, sweet, light whiskey. This is the secret that we're gonna unveil today. Let's talk a bit about the history. In the 8th century after Christ, the Picts were the dominant group around this area, and they chiseled a fine picture into the stone. They called it the Hilton of Cutball stone. And this is the picture you see on every Glenmorangie bottle, and actually also in the glass on the still house at the distillery. This is the way that Glenmorangie honors the heritage of these very old architects, stones, artists, and it took this into the brand of Glenmorangie and honors these people. In the 19th century, in 1843, the distillery was founded, it was established, and it took up its business in 1849. Later, very much later, in 2004, the distillery was bought by Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, a big company known for prestigious brands, and they really lifted up the spirit and really made it into a single malt, premium single malt whiskey. Together with Ardbeg, they are now known for their good quality and for their very interesting flavor profiles. Although Glenmorangie is known for the delicacy, fruitiness, lightness, and in the very contrast you have the Ardbeg distillery, which is smokiness. These two sister distilleries work together quite well, although they produce very, very different kind of whiskies. And today you're gonna find out all the secrets of how Glenmorangie makes such a delicate whiskey. Behind me is a pond, and this pond is actually fed by the Tarlogie Spring. The Tarlogie Springs are underground springs that press the water through the ground up into this pond, and at sometimes during the day you can actually see there are little humps on the water. This is where the water comes up from the ground. The Tarlogie Springs is named after the local town that is right next to it, and it feeds the distillery for their water that is used in their production for making the whiskey. It is very clear, it is perfect for whiskey making, it's actually strong on minerals, and that is what the distillery likes about these springs, and they use the water from these ponds to make their whiskey. At the beginning of the whiskey production, we have the ingredients. We have the malts. This here is some of the malt they use at the distillery. It's a regular unpeated malt. Why do we use malt for the whiskey production, not just grain? And you realize that when you taste the malt. When you eat it, you realize, oh, that's kind of sweet and softer than regular grain. That's because we have undergone the malting process. The fermentation to the wort, the so-called beer, needs sugar. So what we do is we steep the grain and then spread it out and let it grow. So it actually begins to grow. The grain wants to become a bushel of barley again. And this turns the starch to sugar to let the grain perform their chemical tasks and turn it into celluloses. But just before it turns into celluloses, we stop the process of growing, and then we're left with a malt that is actually really, really sweet. Then this malt is being crushed down into something called grist, and the grist ends up in here, the mash tun. The mash tun is a 46,000 liter stainless steel tank that spreads out all the 10 tons of grist for one mashing, and then you sprinkle on water. This is done 3 times. The first time you have a really sugary water, really sugary bready water, the so-called wort. The second time you have a bit less sugar, so you do it a bit hotter as well, and the last run is really, really hot, nearly at the point of boiling. And this water is so low on sugar and starch that you really can't use it for fermentation. So you store it in a different tank, and then in the next run you use that water to dissolve the first water. This gives you a maximum efficiency to get everything out of the grain. Yeah, and now we go on to the fermentation, where the alcohol is being created. So I'm here at the wash bags, and we've just talked about the wort. The wort is this sugary, floury substance that came from the mash tun. And here's just a little sip of it, and let's find out how this really tastes. It really feels like someone has put a few cubes of sugar in there, because it's just so sweet, but also very malty, floury, bready. It's almost like you taste a liquid loaf of bread with a lot of sugar in it. Yeah, interesting. And then we do have a lot of flavors within Glenmorangie. And this is actually the part where these flavors occur. And the really interesting thing here is everything is done naturally by the fermentation with the yeast and the alcohol. The fruit flavors are called esters. It's a combination of acid and alcohols, and in the end you get an ester, and they can be done artificially, but here at Glenmorangie everything is done naturally. And let's find out how they really smell. You really do realize there is a lot of pineapple, apple, and other fresh fruits in there. And when you try it, it's actually a bit sour from the fermentation, and you do realize, oh, there's alcohol in it. It's like a beer with 8%, but there is no bitterness to it because there's no hops in it. So it's really a beer that would not last long in the bottle because the hops is actually making it durable. So we have to treat this somehow to make it durable, and that's the distillation part. And yeah, here at Glenmorangie we do look at all the different parts of the fermentation. That's a long duration, and the yeast and everything is made so that you have a fresh, fruity, delicate flavor. The duration is about 60 hours, and this really lets the yeast settle in and become that fruity flavor that you're looking for the distillation. It would really be a nice drink if it were more durable for the bottling, yeah. But now let's find out how the distillation affects the flavor of Glenmorangie. So this is where the magic happens. We have a two-step distillation to get from a 8% beer to a 69-70% alcoholic range. How you do that? You have, first of all, the wash still. The wash still boils the beer, the vapors rise within this still and then get condensed in the condenser. The shape of the second still, the spirit still, boils the intermediate, and the shape is really, really important for the character of the whiskey. So let's have a look at the shape of this still. First of all, you have the bubble at the bottom where the intermediate spirit is being boiled. Then you have a constriction, and then you have a reflux bowl. The reflux bowl kind of creates a vortex, so it makes it really difficult for the heavy, bitter and sharp notes within the intermediate to come through that vortex. It's really difficult because these substances are more heavy than the light, fruity, sweet characters that we do want to have. But then after this vortex, after the reflux bowl, we have a very, very long neck, which lets these alcohols really, really separate very, very well. And this is how the distillery gets a very fine, light, delicate, fruity spirit. The length of the neck of the distillery is 5.5 1.14 meters from the constriction to the very, very top of the still. And once the vapors have reached the very top of the still, then we have the swan's neck. And the swan's neck connects to the line arm, and the line arm is actually falling. So all the vapors that get to the line arm and condense in the line arm actually flow into the condenser. All the vapors go through that line arm, get into the condenser, and with the outside water of, I don't know, maybe 8-10 degrees centigrade, everything is being condensed, and this is then our raw final spirit. So did the distillery really intend to make these stills in that shape to produce that kind of spirit? Nah, not really. Back in the days, the distillery was in the poor north of Scotland and the rich people lived down south. So they bought used gin stills from London with this shape, and they actually distilled it on there. Everybody else used different type of stills, but they only had to buy these used stills because probably they didn't have enough money. Actually turned out to be really, really good. So when the distillery picked up more pace and everybody liked the Glenmorangie brand, then they have to, build more, increase the volume. How do you do that? Build bigger stills? No. You don't change the shape of the stills if you have such a good spirit. So what they did is they just built another still there, and then another. And I think in the 21st century, they were up to 8 stills, and then they increased it to 12 stills, which still, it's not enough. So the distillery is actually looking forward to increasing the number of stills again, but they always want to keep the size of 10,400 liters and 8,200 liters, because this is the core of the character of the Glenmorangie whiskey. So the distillery is already computerized. There is a lot of pumping and valves going on with computers, but you still do have the old spirit safe, and you can still do the measurements with this spirit safe. So let me introduce you how you run through the distillation process with the spirit safe. On my left here, we do have the wash stills. The wash stills just have one outlet and just one piece, because you run the wash still until everything is distilled, and you stop at a certain alcohol percentage, and the rest in there is pretty sour. It's called the pot ale. Some colonists might refer to as sour mash. It's not really used here, so it's been thrown out. But how do you know at what point of time you have to stop? This is done by these measurement valves. You can turn the valves, and then this one is not running. So you can turn the valves, and then the alcohol rises within this glass tube, and when it reaches the top, you stop, and then you can read the measurements. It's always important to read the measurements, the temperature within the valve, and also the density within the lever, so you can find out at what temperature, at what density you have what alcoholic level, and at what point you have to stop with the wash still distillation. The spirit still is more difficult. You want to reach something that's called the heart. You don't want to have the very, very, very light alcoholics, the methanol alcohol, because that actually makes you blind and actually is really not good for you. So you run the 4 shots, you measure it until you reach a point where you realize, okay, that's the heart, that's where you start, and then you run it, the alcohol level drops slightly until you reach the very, very end, and there you want to stop as well, because then you come to the feints, the end, the tails. These are the heavier alcohols, the ones that are more bitter, the ones that are actually causing headaches. So that's what you want to leave out. So also you measure it, this one is running. Again, you fill the valve, it fills up, you measure the temperature, you measure the density, you can calculate how much alcohol I have in it. You have to do that pretty often. If you have so many stills, if you have 12 stills in total, you have to measure it pretty often. And then you know when to switch from the heart to the 4 shots and the feints. The foreshots and the feints are actually not that bad because we have copper stills. There are catalytic reactions going on with the copper that turn the feints and the foreshots into the real alcohol that you want to have. They take out the bitterness and the bad flavors. That's why everybody uses these copper stills. And what I want to tell you, then you do have the material to use the feints and the foreshots again in the next distillation. So the feints and the foreshots are collected within the charger, and then you fill them in the next distillation to rerun them and not lose any of your efficiency. So this is how you can manually measure where to cut your distillation. So this here is one of the dunnage warehouses of Glenmorangie. And the Glenmorangie warehouses, some of them are dunnage warehouses, some of them are racked warehouses. And what the distillery do is they fill all of their dun spirit, their new make, into bourbon barrels. First fill bourbon barrels, some of them second fill bourbon barrels. And they mature them for 10 years, all of their spirit. And after 10 years, they can decide whether they want to release them as a 10-year-old original or actually finish them in different casks, like Sauterne cask, Ruby Port pipes, Oloroso PX. And so they get a bit of flexibility of what the customers want. If the people start to want more of the Ruby Port pipes, then they will shift more of their 10-year-old finish to Ruby Port pipes. If they want more of the 10-year-old original, they just bottle the original. So they have a bit of variation in there. But not all of their bottlings are so strict with these 10 years. Some of them mature in virgin oak casks, and some of them get to mature 15 years. Example for the 18-year-old, he has 15 years in bourbon barrels, and then 3 years in a finishing period. So this is how the distillery is actually doing their maturing business, which is actually a kind of a brilliant idea. So you really have the long maturing period and also the flexibility of a short finishing period. And now we head on to the interview to find out how it actually tastes in their product range. So let's go for the interview. I'm standing here with Andy McDonald. You're 10 years now at the distillery at Glenmorangie, 27 years of experience. You started off as an apprentice distiller.
I did, yeah.
Thank you very much for having us here. It's a pleasure to be at Glenmorangie. It's a nice distillery. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you very much. So what are we having today? You got quite a range here.
We do, yeah. We've got what we call the core range of Glenmorangie. So we've got the 10-year-old original. We have the Nectar d'Or, which is a Sauterne finish, the Quinta Ruban, and the La Santa. So we're gonna. You want to try?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Of course.
I'm really longing for.
Well, we're in the perfect place to try the whiskey. So we're going to start off with the Glenmorangie 10-year-old original. This is the biggest selling Glenmorangie.
Oh yeah, with us too.
So yeah, so 70% of what we make at the distillery goes into this whiskey. So I'll give you a wee dram there.
Nice.
Now, you know, Glenmorangie, the style of whiskey that Glenmorangie is, it's a very light, fruity, sweet style of whiskey. So the spirit, the new make spirit that we make in the big tall stills at Glenmorangie sort of intensify the fruitiness that you get in the Glenmorangie. So when you warm it up a little bit, it's a wee bit chilly in here today. But
yeah, it's the warehouse. You need that temperature for the maturation, right?
Well, no, that's very true, right? So so we'll give it a wee warm up, and then when you have a look at the colour it'll tell you a few different things. It'll tell you roughly the age, but that doesn't always ring true. It also depends on the type of barrel that it's been matured in, or the type of oak that it's been matured in. So Glenmorangie Original has been matured in first and second fill American barrels. All right. So when you smell the whiskey, it's beautifully fruity. I'm getting really sort of citrusy oranges, lemons coming through.
I really do smell your wash when I smell in here.
Yeah.
You really got through with the wash.
Yeah. So you've been up in the fermentation room. So the wash.
I've tried the wash, and it's there's definitely something more in there, and it's much more intense. But you do smell a little bit of
apple, a little bit of
fresh apple, fresh green apple maybe.
Yeah, a hint of pineapple as well.
Yeah.
It was more intense. The pineapple was more intense in the wash, but it's still there.
I mean, it is. It's really. It just strikes you immediately how fruity it is. It's a very fruity style of whiskey. So you've got the oranges, lemons, pineapple. You were talking about apples, maybe fresh apples, banana, pineapple. These beautiful fresh flavors or fresh aromas.
A little bit of tropical fruit, but still you have that lovely vanilla in the background, a little bit of caramel in the background, a little bit of bourbon stuff.
Exactly. So this is a great combination. Let's have a wee taste. Okay.
Yeah.
The first thing that all Glenmorangies have is texture. You have texture in the mouth. So it's like syrup or honey in the mouth. It coats the mouth and then it melts away with the warmth in the mouth, and you just get these beautiful fruity, juicy flavors coming through. And you still got it in your mouth.
Yeah, you always have to. If you have such a great malt in your mouth, you have to give it time. No, it's strange how it's liquid and also kind of honey-like. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's for sure.
And it's that's a light drum. Kind of a drum that you can enjoy every day, not too heavy, just...
Oh, okay,
yeah, definitely. I would also... This is one of the drams I would recommend to a beginner.
To a beginner or an experienced drinker as well.
An experienced drinker might also enjoy that.
It's always nice to come back to. But
I always have the fear when you introduce whiskey to a beginner that you might overwhelm them. Yeah, if I'd introduce them to maybe an Ardbeg, Ardbeg is really nice, but it's still it's a bit heavy.
It could be a bit too much of a punch in the face, So this is a nice, gentle, very delicious whiskey, because that's how I describe it. Glenmorangie is a delicious whiskey, and especially a 10-year-old. So it's a great combination between the Ishkipé or the new make spirit, the spirit we make through these big tall stills. You got that fruity characteristic. And then you've got the influence of the wood, the first and second fill American barrels, which gives the coconut, the vanilla, the toffee, the fudge, these kind of real sweet kind of flavours coming through.
Yeah. I had a lot of these, out of the original. I mean, it's one of the biggest sellers for us, and so we have them quite often. So, and it's really nice.
Well, it is, and it's just Glenmorangie in the glass. This is everything that Glenmorangie should be.
This is what Glenmorangie stands for.
Try a wee bit of water in it to open up the whiskey. Just a few drops is enough. And now you give it a mix. And
a bit more citrus.
You get this explosion of citrusiness. It's not an easy word to say, but it intensifies the aromas of the oranges, the lemons, the really fresh citrus kind of flavours coming through.
I'm always a bit worried that when I enter in a blind tasting that I would say, I think this is made from pears. This is made from pears.
It's just it's definitely not. It's definitely made from malted barley.
It's strange that you get from malted barley. You get such a fruity, fresh character.
No, you're absolutely right. So there's a few things that do sort of contribute to that. The water, the Tarlogi water, full of minerals. The way that we mash, a nice clear worts. We've got the fermentation, so you got the alcohol created, but the fruity estery compounds are created, and that's where we're getting intense fruitiness coming from.
I was really amazed with your wash, definitely. But we're always a bit worried that we're gonna run out of some stuff, and so I've seen a bit going on at the distillery. Is there any expansion business, or what's going on here?
Well, I mean, over the years, I've been here for 10 years, and I've expanded the distillery. One big time, 10 years ago we did a big expansion, but we're always looking to the future. So we've got a bit of building work going on here just now, which is we're going to be making some other whiskies, something slightly different perhaps.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to be this new facility, or the addition to the distillation capacity will give us the ability to keep our customers satisfied for the future.
So you're up to the rise in demand.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
of course.
that's
yeah.
what we want,
Yeah,
we want to hear. We
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to have a shortage.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, we're really afraid of the shortage.
There'll be no shortage of Glenmorangie, that's for sure.
Okay, so cask finishes. What's up next?
Okay, well we've got this is the Nectar d'Or, and here's the bottle. So it's a 12-year-old whiskey. It's been matured very similar to the 10-year-old original, first and second fill American barrels. But after 10 years, we'll take the whiskey out of the American oak, and we'll put it into a Sauterne, a French dessert wine cask. Okay, so it's a very sweet dessert wine for a further 2 years, and at the end of that period, it's a 12-year-old whiskey, and that's what we have in the bottle here. So do you want to try a wee dram of this one?
Yeah, definitely.
So Nectar d'Or, it's obviously got that kind of French connection with the name. So nectar is the food of the gods, or is gold in Gaelic and French. So it's got the French-Scottish connection, the Auld Alliance. So 12-year-old Glenmorangie, and if you look at the colour, if you compare it to the 10-year-old, it is slightly darker in colour. So it's a 12-year-old whiskey, so it's slightly older, but it's also been in this Sauterne cask for 2 years, so it's taken on some of the influence of the French dessert white wine cask. So when you smell the whiskey, well, you tell me what you smell.
It's also fresh.
Yeah.
They do have fruitiness, but it's going more into I don't know, grapey, ripe pears.
Yeah.
It's more, I would say, more velvety, softer.
Velvety. Oh, that's interesting. Well, okay, have a taste. Wow. It's got a slight sharpness to it, like acidity. Yeah.
It's much more intense.
Intense. Yeah.
Where the original was just soft, just soft and laid back, fruity. This is definitely has an oak tone to it, a bit of a oomph, bit of a spiciness, bit of a intenseness.
No, absolutely. I mean, you're right in all accounts, and it's.
But we increased the ABV a little bit, right?
Stronger whiskey. This is 46.
Oh yeah, you do realize that you got some intensity in the cask.
And it's a non-chill filtered whiskey as well. So it hasn't gone through the chill filtration process as the 10-year-old has, because the strength is stronger. It's a 46%. So for me, when I smell this whiskey and close my eyes, I'm kind of brought into as if I'm stepping through the door into a bakery shop, a place where they're selling the breads, the fresh breads are baking away. You've got the pastries, the tarte au citron, the lemon slices, the custard slices, all this sort of patisserie, French patisserie kind of aromas coming through.
Yeah,
and taste.
But the thing is that the smell is much more delicate and soft than the taste. The taste really says, hello, I'm there.
But no, absolutely.
The smell is a bit laid back, and I do get maltiness as well now that you mention it. And the bread.
Yeah. But you're right on the palate. It is very viscous. It's very silky smooth. Velvety. You mentioned velvety. That's the texture, and then it melts away, and you've got these beautiful sweet flavors coming through. Not over sweet. It's got a sharpness to it, definitely. So the sharpness kind of cuts through. It's got an acidity about it.
It's nice how you have that distillery character, very much in the original, and then you realize how much you can add on in 2 years of finishing.
Yeah. No, it's not long. 2 years is quite a short period of time, really, in the grander scheme of things, for a 12-year-old whiskey. But the difference in flavour and aroma is quite striking. So that initial 2 years in the Sauterne, has a big effect on the whiskey quite quickly. So for that reason, we leave it for 2 years, because we don't want to mask the sort of the distillery style that we go to great lengths to create in the first place.
Just have to imagine if you forget one of these casks.
Well, that's for sure. But I mean, very, very delicious whiskey again. I keep going back to that word delicious, and I do describe Glenmorangie as the most delicious whiskey in the world, you know. I mean that most sincerely.
So, we've seen quite a lot of different Glenmorangie whiskies, and we really love that. So, how's the product range of Glenmorangie developing? Are you want to condense it or expand it?
Well, I mean, we're always looking at different expressions of Glenmorangie. We have the core range here, which is here to stay, but we're also experimenting with different styles of whiskey, and every year we take a different expression out as part of the private edition. So we're up to next year will be number 10. So every year for the last 10 years we've had a different expression coming out. So round behind us here we've got all these fantastic casks maturing away. Something secret for the future maybe it's inside these casks. So yeah, I mean we're always looking to the future. That's for sure.
So you're gonna have a few experiments and
okay, that's for sure.
Nice.
Of course, yeah.
I really love that. I love that you can with the whiskey industry you can have a marriage of tradition and innovation at the same time, and everybody loves it.
And that is the difficulty sometimes, because it's not you can't just create a whiskey like that, it's a long-term project. Yeah, it's a long-term game that we're in here, so we're always thinking well into the future.
Yeah. So the thing is that the traditionalists and the experiment and diligent guys are pretty much the same people. Yeah. Because even the guys who really like the traditional whiskey like the experiments. Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah. So, no, that's for sure.
Quinta Ruba.
Yeah, Quinta Ruba. Okay, so look at the colour.
Look at the dark.
Look how dark that is. Isn't it beautiful? So it's got a rosy tinge to it,
Nice.
So let's pour one of these and I'll explain what the whiskey is as we're pouring. So this is a 12-year-old Glenmorangie, and it's been matured for 10 years. Similar again, the whiskey, the 10-year-old original, first and second fill. And then we take the whiskey out of those casks and put it into a ruby port cask from Portugal. So one of these big port pipes that we have round about is here for a further 2 years. So that makes a 12-year-old Glenmorangie. Look at the colour, isn't that gorgeous? It's just beautiful.
That is
it's just
amber and even darker.
Yeah. So it's a ruby port.
I would say, is that rust? How would you describe it?
That's maybe a good way to describe it. A rusty.
Yeah, rust doesn't sound delicious.
Rustic. Should we call it rustic? It's got a rustic.
A very dark apple.
Well, it just makes me want to drink it.
It's just it looks a bit like a wine.
Well, compare it to the 10-year-old. You can see, it's a completely different colour altogether.
Yeah, completely different.
But it's a Glenmorangie through and through. It's just spent 2 years in the port pipe to get that colour. The ruby port has influenced the whiskey quite heavily. So let's have a smell. This is 46% alcohol as well, so it's non-chill filtered.
This is it's almost a nuttiness in there.
Yeah. Slight nuttiness.
And the dark fruits.
Yeah. I think we should have a taste, and then we'll get more of the kind of aromas coming through. This one for me, this is one of my favourite expressions actually of Glenmorangie, because it's got two sides to it. Okay, there's the first side is quite bitter. It's got a slight bitterness. It's like dark chocolate or cocoa. But then when the bitterness disappears, you've got this lovely sweet flavours coming through afterwards. Turkish delight. Maybe a slight mentholic mintiness about it, a freshness. Yeah.
This is really a roller coaster. When you have it in your mouth, it's still a bit sweet for me.
Yeah.
And then when you swallow it, you got that bittersweet chocolate that you talked about. And now in the aftertaste, you have that. I would even call it an overly sweet. The Turkish delight is like these sweets that are a bit too sweet. That really sticky sweetness.
It's pretty complex, isn't it? This one,
Yeah, it's a complex one. Yeah, this is definitely the contrast. You have that but everyday dram that's just easy and pleasant. And this one is the complex that you can sit near your fire and just think about, what do I have in my mouth?
No, that's very true. It's a lot of contemplation in this whiskey. You can sit and think about it for a while, but it's a delicious whiskey, and it's it's complex from a point of view. It has all these different kind of aspects to it. It just kind of opens up in your mouth, and when you warm it up slowly, it's like, whoa, beautiful, fresh smells coming through.
Well, that's just everything in this glass.
And I love that mintiness, the mint. You get that kind of freshness coming through as well, which is the influence of the cask. The port pipe is
now that you pour a bit of water and you become much more fresher.
Fresher, yeah,
definitely. Oh, it really changed.
Yeah,
and it's strange somehow that some whiskies really react so much to water.
Yeah,
this is one of them.
Yeah. It's delicious.
Is a very different dram than I had before.
It's great.
I love it.
This whiskey is so good. I love the Quinta Ruban.
Yeah. So I've seen Sauternes and here the Ruby.
Yeah.
And so you're part of the Moët Hennessy.
That's correct.
Company. So they have a few wines and sparkling wines. So are you trading casks with them, or are you planning to trade casks with them?
I don't want to give away any secrets here. We are always experimenting with different types of casks. Of course, it has to be oak. That's a given. But what that oak has been holding in its past life, we're always experimenting with different styles of casks. It's had different wines or different alcohols in previously. So we're always experimenting. And Moët Hennessy, you're right, they have a great array of vineyards and wines out in the wider world. So you never know.
I'm hearing a yes. I'm really excited about the future.
I'm not saying yes. You never know.
You never know. But you have something really good up so far. So La Santa.
Yes, La Santa. So, as the name kind of suggests, it's got a Spanish connection, La Santa, the saint. And in Gaelic it means the saint as well. So this is 12-year-old whiskey, once again. So it's the extra maturation process. So like 10-year-old, up to 10 years in first and second fill American barrels. And then a further 2 years, we take 50% of those barrels, put it into Oloroso sherry casks. And 50% of those barrels would go into the Pedro Jimenez sherry cask, so very sweet style of sherry. So there's two different sherry elements going into this, okay? Oloroso, Pedro Jimenez.
Oh, this will be probably a really hefty, fruity, sweet, nutty, chocolatey. It's probably going to be a really nice one.
Yeah, you're kind of anticipating the aromas and flavours of what you're going to get here.
I've had that before a few times.
I think maybe you have. Yeah. So La Santa, and this is bottled at 43%. Okay. Now, about 4 years ago, we changed the kind of recipe of La Santa because of the feedback we're getting from our customers around the world. There was just something just not quite right about it. So about 4 years ago, we changed the recipe to include the element of Pedro Jimenez, which it didn't have before. So it was all Oloroso sherry cask for 2 years. Now we have 50% Oloroso, 50% Pedro Jimenez. So it's given it much more depth and sweetness. And we've taken the strength from 46 down to 43%. So we've put it through the chill filtration process, okay, to take out some of the natural lipids and the fatty acids that are within the whiskey itself. And I think what we've done is we've created a far better balanced La Santa, in my opinion. And some of the feedback we've had, or most of the feedback, is very positive. So I'll let you decide for yourself.
Creamy.
Yeah.
Sweet. There's a banana and strawberries.
Excellent.
definitely a fruity character.
Definitely
a fruity character.
Yeah. So what type of fruits? Let's taste it, and it might help us make up our minds as to what's actually in here. Wow. I'd actually forgotten how good Nola Santa is. It's a sherry influenced whiskey, okay? So sherry influence will be that Christmas cake kind of flavours coming through, a little bit of cinnamon, bit of spice, bit of nuttiness, walnuts, almonds maybe.
It's like the Sauternes. It's heftier. It's with the spiciness on the tongue that is on the nose.
Right.
I really like it when you nose a whiskey, when you try it, you nose it again, it changes.
Yeah. Well,
It's just
always
now
changing.
the whiskey is in your system and you.
It's great, and it's a really warming whiskey. For a cold day like today, just kind of warm it up like a fine cognac in your hand, let it warm up a bit, have a good smell, and then have a wee sip. And you just feel the warmth going all the way down the throat. It leaves a bit of a glow. It has that spiciness about it. The dried fruits like dates, figs, the sultanas, these really sort of dried fruits.
But you do get this sherry character, just sweetness from the PX, the fruitiness, and everything. But here I still do get a bit of that distillery character.
Yeah.
There's a where the others were a bit overwhelming from the cask. This one is still going a bit for the distillery character.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not just distillery character. It's a good balance there.
Yeah. Well,
I think the others, if you go really deep into them and really long, you can find the distillery character
Oh,
as well.
yeah,
But this here is a bit straightforward.
And that's why we do what we do. To get the extra maturation process, you want to give it enough time to get that point of difference, the different flavour and the different aroma, but you don't want to mask the distillery character. A good balanced whiskey would be 40% of the flavour is coming from the distillery character, the new make spirit, and 60% of the flavour and aroma is coming from the wood, the influence of the wood, and that's a good balance. That 40-60 rule is what we try and go by. And if you drift too far, towards the woodiness side, then you're kind of masking the distillery character, which is so profound in its style.
Yeah, it would be a shame if you mask a distillery fully, because then you could, I don't know, just use
What's the
any
point?
spirit.
What's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point? So each one of these from the core expression is definitely Glenmorangie. Has that Glenmorangie character in behind some of the other flavours. That fresh, fruity, vibrant kind of character coming through, just so you're picking up on there. So
I love it.
it's not bad, eh?
I really like
pretty tasty. It's great.
They're a bunch of fruits, and they're interesting, they're complex, and they're just also easy to enjoy.
Yeah. No, that's right. And today you've been around the distillery and you've spoken to the people who are making the whiskey, and you're seeing the influences that go into this glass here.
Yeah, the thing is always when you try a whiskey at a distillery, it always tastes different.
Well, especially in a warehouse like this,
Especially in the warehouse.
It's maturing around the base, it tastes even better, I think.
Okay, so I've seen other distilleries experimenting really radical, like let's say Ardbeg with the Ardbeg Blaster. They did an unpeated where they usually all do peated.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing a heavily peated whiskey?
Well, it has crossed our minds, but we did a lightly peated whiskey about 8 years ago called Finalta. Finalta was one of our private edition range, and it was a lightly peated whiskey, in the region of sort of 5 to 8 parts per million phenol. And it had a slight smokiness to it, not overwhelmingly, but in behind the other flavours was this slight smokiness to it, And that's good, that's a nice sort of addition to the Glenmorangie style. But to do a heavy peated whiskey for Glenmorangie,
just kill it.
Yeah, I mean, why should we do that? It's we have Ardbeg, which is our sister on Isla, who do it so well. So we don't want to be competing against Isla. We'll leave that to Ardbeg to do the heavily peated
Okay,
whiskies.
fair enough. So yeah, really great. And thank you very much for the tour here and everything, so we could show the distillery. And
Yeah.
so thank you
All
very
right,
much.
Yeah, well, pleasure. Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
Slanjava.
Slanjava. So, thank you very much for watching. If you found this video interesting and you have friends who also enjoy whiskey and they also like to know about Glenmorangie Distillery, then please feel free to share this video with your friends and see you next time.
Slanjava.